Have you ever heard about Charles Ponzi, the man with the most infamous financial scams in history? He used to promise people that they could get rich fast by turning small investments into big returns. But behind the scenes, Ponzi was hiding a dark secret, a financial trick so clever it's still used today. How did one man manage to fool so many, and what was the cost? In this video, we will tell you about Charles Ponzi, the creator of the Ponzi scheme. But before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get regular updates. Let's get started. Who was Charles Ponzi? Charles Ponzi, born Carlo Pietro Giovanni Guglielmo Tebaldo Ponzi on March 3, 1882 in Lugo, Italy, came from a family of modest means. His upbringing was not one of wealth or privilege, and from an early age he dreamed of financial success. Like many young Italians of his time, Ponzi sought a better life abroad, setting his sights on America, which he saw as a land of opportunity. In 1903, he immigrated to the United States, expecting to find wealth and success waiting for him on the other side. However, the reality of immigrant life in America proved much tougher than Ponzi had anticipated. He worked low-paying jobs and faced considerable hardship, yet he remained determined. Ponzi had a natural charisma and charm that made him likable, and he possessed a relentless ambition to succeed. But as time passed without significant financial improvement, Ponzi's obsession with wealth grew, eventually pushing him towards schemes that could make him rich, no matter the consequences. The spark behind the Ponzi scheme. Ponzi's journey into infamy began in 1919 when he discovered a business opportunity involving international reply coupons, IRCs. These coupons allowed people to prepay for postage in one country and send the coupon abroad, where it could be exchanged for local stamps. Following World War I, fluctuations in currency values made it possible to buy IRCs cheaply in certain countries and redeem them for a higher value in the United States. Ponzi saw a chance to make significant profits by exploiting these currency differences. Although this opportunity was legitimate in theory, the logistics of exchanging IRCs on a large scale proved nearly impossible. Instead of pursuing this complex business model, Ponzi turned his focus to selling the idea of it to investors. He promised returns of 50% within 45 days and even 100% in 90 days. These promises were especially appealing during the post-war economic slump when people were desperate for opportunities to grow their money quickly. Without fully understanding the intricacies of Ponzi's business, investors eagerly handed over their savings, lured by the promise of high returns. How the Ponzi scheme operated. At its core, Ponzi's scheme was straightforward yet deceptive. He used funds from new investors to pay returns to earlier investors. This method created the illusion of a successful enterprise generating consistent profits. As more people invested, Ponzi could pay out returns to the initial investors, reinforcing the belief that his business was legitimate and profitable. This type of operation is what's known today as a pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme. It depends entirely on a continuous influx of new investors to pay existing ones, rather than generating returns from real profits. For a while, Ponzi's system worked seamlessly. The early investors received the promised returns, which encouraged even more people to invest. As news of Ponzi's success spread, more and more people were drawn in, eager to participate in what appeared to be a golden investment opportunity. The height of Ponzi's success. Ponzi's scheme soon took Boston by storm. Word spread quickly, fueled by sensationalized newspaper stories and personal testimonies from investors who had reaped returns. It was said that at the peak of his operation, Ponzi was making millions of dollars per day, an enormous sum for the early 20th century. His newfound wealth was on full display. He bought luxury cars, wore tailored suits, and purchased a lavish mansion. For many, Ponzi's extravagant lifestyle was proof of his financial genius, further convincing people to invest their money. This cycle of attraction and investment created a feedback loop. As more people saw Ponzi living like a millionaire, they too wanted to invest and join the success. By mid-1920, Ponzi was the most famous man in Boston, the man with the Midas touch who seemed to have cracked the code of wealth. However, the glittering facade of his success hid the fact that the scheme was built on a foundation of lies. The unraveling of the Ponzi scheme. Ponzi's empire began to collapse under its weight in the summer of 1920. As the scheme expanded, Ponzi needed an ever-growing amount of new investor money to keep up with the payments he owed to previous investors. His promises of quick and massive returns began to draw scrutiny. Reporters and government officials began investigating Ponzi's operation, questioning the sustainability of his business model and the source of his profits. The Boston Post published a series of articles that raised doubts about Ponzi's business. As the investigation deepened, alarm spread among investors who started demanding their money back in large numbers. At first, Ponzi was able to satisfy these requests using funds from newer investors. But as more people requested withdrawals, it became impossible to keep up. The scheme crumbled, revealing that Ponzi had no substantial assets or real profits to speak of. In August 1920, Ponzi was arrested and charged with multiple counts of mail fraud. Authorities estimated that he owed millions to his investors, but his assets were only a fraction of that amount. His carefully constructed empire of deceit fell apart, and the man who had once seemed untouchable was exposed as a con artist. Life after the scheme. After his arrest, Ponzi faced a series of legal battles and was ultimately sentenced to prison. He served time in federal prison for mail fraud and was then tried on additional state charges. Ponzi spent many years behind bars, and by the time he was released, his reputation and life savings were gone. Following his release, Ponzi struggled to find his footing in a world that now viewed him as a notorious fraudster. In 1934, he was deported back to Italy, where he continued to live in poverty. Ponzi's final years were spent in Brazil, where he took on various low-paying jobs, including working as a translator. He died in 1949 in a hospital in Rio de Janeiro, far removed from the life of wealth and opulence he had once flaunted. The lasting impact of the Ponzi scheme. Charles Ponzi's scheme left an indelible mark on the financial world. His name became synonymous with fraudulent investment schemes, and the term Ponzi scheme entered the lexicon to describe any operation that uses funds from new investors to pay returns to earlier ones without generating actual profits. Ponzi's legacy serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of greed and the perils of pursuing wealth without caution or integrity. In response to the Ponzi scheme, financial regulations were tightened and government agencies were established to monitor and prevent similar scams. Ponzi's downfall highlighted the importance of transparency in investment and the need for oversight to protect unsuspecting investors. Yet despite these measures, variations of the Ponzi scheme continue to emerge as scammers capitalize on the same human weaknesses that Ponzi exploited: greed, desperation, and the desire for quick returns. One might think that after the exposure of the Ponzi scheme, people would be cautious about promises of extraordinary returns. However, Ponzi schemes persist because they appeal to human psychology. People want easy money, and the promise of high returns with low risk is too enticing for many to resist. Ponzi schemes often thrive during economic downturns or periods of uncertainty, when people are more susceptible to the lure of quick gains. Modern Ponzi schemes have evolved, adopting complex language, sophisticated websites, and professional-looking presentations to create an illusion of legitimacy. But at their core, they operate on the same principles that Charles Ponzi used, paying off old investors with the money of new ones and hiding the lack of real profits. That's all for now. I hope you have enjoyed watching the video. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comment section below. Like and share the video and follow us for more updates. Thank you.